Thanks everyone for joining us. This is yet another, technology industry groups lunch and learn. And part of what we do with this series is we allow you, right, the members of the group, to come and share your expertise with the rest of the rest of the group. We are all technology experts, within our own verticals. And I'm sure there's lots of information out there that can be shared. And within the industry group, in addition to our weekly Smart Connects, we have these lunch and learns where we provide a platform to you to talk about the expertise that you've garnered, over the years, and how you currently help and support your clients today. So with that said, we are using the Zoom webinar platform. There is a capacity to leverage the Q&A feature in the bottom. So as questions come up, make sure you type those questions in the Q&A, and we can get Rich to answer them along the way. As well as, I'm sure Rich, there'll be some time for some verbal Q&A towards the end. I hope.
I'm hoping.
All right, good. We have confidence in you. So with that said, I'm William McBurrow. I am the group leader of the technology industry group. My role here is to provide a platform for you all. And today on deck, we have Rich Powers with the PC Help Desk Inc. I will let Rich introduce himself and tell us a little bit of his background, and then he's going to take it away. So Rich, the floor is yours.
Very good. Well, thank you, William, for just giving us the opportunity to do this, and for all the work you do behind the scenes on the on the whole platform there for us. And to all of you who are joining, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to see what I have to offer. So I have probably too much info I want to try to cram in here, so I'm going to kind of rush through it and hopefully have some time at the end for questions. But if we run out of time, my contact info is up there, and of course you can always reach me right here through the platform. So my name is Rich Powers. I own the PC Help Desk. Been in business for a good long time now. I've kind of evolved as things have changed in the industry. I've gone from doing hardware installations and support, even in people's homes, to working on small business server, if any of you remember that kind of platform, and then kind of pivoted over to training, software training, doing stand-up instructor-led training for some kind of big companies as a contract trainer, Raytheon, EMC, Leahy Clinic, things like that, and really fell in love with the software part of it. And eventually, when the budgets dried up and there was no more of that training money around, then people started calling me because they knew I knew what I was doing, and they'd say, "Can you come on in and help me out?" And that just kind of turned us into doing full-time development stuff and consulting and software. So right now, what we do is we focus on getting more value out of your existing hardware, software, and your data. We do that by either showing you better ways to use your tools. And when I'm talking about tools and software here, it's predominantly the Microsoft Office product line, or any of the products in the Microsoft Office ecosystem. So we may just show you commands you didn't know. We may show you tips and tricks, or we may develop complete solutions for you to help you manage your data better, cleaning up your data, ingesting data better, combining data from multiple systems that didn't already talk to one another. And we do that all with the product line that Microsoft provides. Microsoft calls them products, but we call them tools. We have our three foundational pieces here are Access, Excel, and Word. We use Access as a front end and a user interface that we can build pretty quickly to handle your data input needs, your data viewing needs, and reporting needs. And if it can't be handled in Access, then we'll use Excel and Word as the output vehicles. And we have a special love affair here with Excel. Excel is just a great tool. I tell people all the time, if you only learn to use one program really, really well, learn Excel, because it can do just about anything. It plays nice with all these other products, and it's great for cleaning data. It's great for reporting on data, and even using as an intermediary tool, which is something we're going to see in one of the demos that I'm going to do today. And then Access is our platform for the user interface. We'll build forms and reports, queries and things, but contrary to what a lot of people believe, Access isn't only about access data. We can connect it to many, many other data sources like SQL, like Excel databases or text files, CSV files, and things like that. So it gives us a platform that we can build on, and then it can be extended to even bigger enterprise level projects. We have some additional offerings that we've been working with more recently, things like Power Automate, right? The ability, I could summarize by saying Power Automate gives you the ability to almost write macros that interact with the world outside of your company. So you can automate things that used to take an awful lot of time for someone to do manually, and you can set them on a schedule, or you can have them triggered automatically when things happen outside of your office even. We're going to see some examples of that. Then we have Power Apps, which is for citizen developers primarily, but it's a platform that allows you to build these simpler applications that are data-driven that you can run on your mobile device, like your phone, your laptop, your tablet, PC, or whatever. And they can connect to, right now, we're up to well over 1,200 different data sources. So you're not constrained to working with your data in the office. You can now access your data out on the from the internet that's outside your office now. And then we have the Power BI platform, which is what most people would refer to as, oh, that's where we keep our dashboards. So if you're somebody who's felt constrained by the limited graphing capabilities of Excel, Power BI is probably the right way to go. It allows you to ingest data from pretty much any data source ever and manipulate that data and then present it in some really, really neat visuals, and then publish it to the internet in a portal called the Power BI service that you can invite people to go and look at, provided they have a license, and they can interact with that data. So we're going to see examples of all of these things today. So what I want to try to rush through here is a showcase of some examples and samples of things that I've done. So in this first demo, what I want to do is I want to take a really common scenario that we've all seen. Somebody has a terrible job that they have to manually work with data, and we're going to automate that and then leverage all of these other products as a result of that. And then we're going to also look at some tools along the way, like some Access files that I've built, and you hopefully overcome the myth that Access isn't a serious development platform. I mean, it's not the sexiest, it's not the newest, it's not the brightest new technology and everything, but in the right hands, it can do an awful lot of things. And it's a very, very powerful and reliable platform to build things on. And we're going to look at a couple of samples of templates and why, I'll point out why they are important and the benefits they bring to the table. And I think a lot of these finer details are lost because people don't go to formal training anymore. So they don't even know what's possible with the software that they probably already own. We're going to look at a couple of Power BI samples using data from our demo, and we're going to work with that data through the Power Platform tool in a couple of places that might surprise you. So my goal here is to show you that you could take your data and then you can use that data in all these other places kind of effortlessly. If you set it up right and you deal with your data the correct way, right? You properly treat your data and structure it someplace, then it's very easy to consume it in all these other places without having to spend an awful lot of time doing it manually. So the first example we're going to look at is the really, really horrible yet very common practice of somebody gets an email from 4 regions in their company, right? So every month somebody gets an email attachment that has data in it, and it's a CSV file, and they get 4 of them, one from north, south, east, and west. This is all fictitious data, right? So it doesn't really mean anything. And what we're going to do is we're going to see that this data has very little structure to it. So let me open up this and we'll do old school reports. That should have already been open, my bad. So here's an example of a poor data file, right? It's a text file that has data in it. And the goal is somebody receives this and they actually have to put it into something that looks like this, right? And we've all seen the spreadsheet like this, where it's just for the year 2023, and it's got the tabs down at the bottom that represent each of the regions, and then one that summarizes it at the end. So imagine that you had to put this data into this report. And the reason you're doing that is because someone needs it at the end of the month. They're going to come in and take some screenshots and they're going to stick them in a PowerPoint slide presentation so they can present to whomever, right? What a horrible way to go. Think of the ways it could go bad, right? They have to remember, all right, I got this from East, so I have to go to that tab, and I have to go to April, and then I have to find these part numbers and put the units in, and it's all manual, right? What a horrible way to go. So what we want to do is we want to show a better way to do all of this. We're going to ultimately automate all of this. But the first thing I want to do is show you that we can use Excel to go back and capture all of this data. So if you think about, I have 2023 here. I also have a file for 2024, right? And I may have one from 2022, 2021, et cetera, right? It's the same thing over and over again. Someone just toils through this every year. So what we want to do is we want to go and get all of that data, collect that data, and then put it in a database. All right, so we can start clean with a good set of data. And that's what we're going to do in this first example. All right, so we're going to use the features in Excel called Power Query to perform some ETL, extract, transform, and load. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the data from that file, the 2023 data and the 2024 data, which looks just like it, it's just different data. And we're going to combine that into a singular table that we can call a database, right? So we've got all of this extraction that has to happen, and we're going to transform the data. We're going to take it from being laid out the way you see here as a matrix, and we're going to convert it, kind of rotate it and flip it into a table. And we're going to combine it so we have 2023 and 2024 data in the same table all at once, okay? And you can see I've got 2023 data and 2024 data here. Now, that's happening using Power Query, and Power Query is very dynamic, and I've told it only look in this folder for the files to process. And the files that you want to process have region RPTS manual in the name, and they end with XLSX. If I come in here and change the name of this, I'm going to just change one of these. So it's no longer ending in XLSX. And I come back here and I refresh this. You're going to see we go from 386 records down to 306 records, right? It doesn't see the 2024 data anymore. So this is real. This isn't like I already did all this stuff and it's static. It's actually real. So I'll go back here. I'm going to undo this, Control Z, and then I'll come in and refresh this again, and we'll be back up to 386 records. So think about it. If we had 10 years worth of back data, all in that folder, we could process all of that and pull it all into a legitimate database table. It's in Excel, but it's still a database, not a great one, but it works. And that gets us something. What does it get us? It gets us the ability to write reports against a data table. So here's a report that's looking only at the table that we just created, right? We sucked all that data in. So this is a pivot table, and the pivot table now contains data for both years and all of the regions. So I can click on these slicers and I can look at what used to be one tab on each of the, in any of those files. And I'm looking at it for 2 years. Or I can select 1 year and say, all right, I want to see just the data for North 2023. Or I could look at the North for 2023 and 2024 both. If I had pulled 10 files back in here, right, 10 years worth of data, it would have built all the years in the little buttons here for me automatically. If somebody ends up adding more products to their report, it'll just get added into the data and we will automatically see it show up here. All right, so we can do things with this one sheet we could do more with this one sheet and these little slicers than we could in any of the single files that we had prior. And if we wanted to see something like a 2023, 2024, we can't do that in the other files without a lot of grief. And it's usually above most people that are doing this kind of stuff. All right, so the takeaway here is we can salvage our data using this ETL tool that's already built into Excel to do extract, transform, and load. And then I'm going to close this because I can rerun that if I have to. And then what we're going to look at next is a full-on automated system to do this. Okay, so instead of somebody getting an email and then they have to open the email, they have to open the attachment from each of those or for each CSV file and then type the data manually into the Excel report, make sure it hits the right place. Instead, the people in the regions are going to send an email to a SharePoint group. And when the SharePoint group gets it, the CSV files will be extracted automatically, and they're going to land in a folder up in SharePoint, right, in a document library. When that happens, it triggers another data flow, and that automation is going to do the ETL stuff that Excel was doing, but it's doing it up in the cloud, and it's going to process that data, turn it into a legitimate table for each file, and then it's going to dump it into an enterprise level data source or data table called Dataverse. It's part of the Power Platform. After that happens, another automation is going to run, and it's going to take the files that were first saved here from the emails, and it's going to archive them into a separate folder. It's going to move them from here out to here so we don't end up reprocessing the data. All right, that's the whole gist of this thing. So in order to do that, we have to send an email, and I have a file here that we're going to use to do that. We can just I have a template set up for that. So this is an email. It's got a whole bunch of attachments in it already. So I'm emulating that I'm going to send 2 quarters worth of data from 2024, right? Same CSV files we were looking at, but they're all different, but they're all for 2024. And I'm sending it not to me, but I'm sending it to the name of the group or the team, data demos at the PC help desk. I'm going to let that run. And in the background, that's going to do all this automation. Again, to show no smoke and mirrors here, I'm going to go to the file folder called new. There's nothing in it. I'm going to go to processed. Nothing there either, right? So empty. I'm also going to open up an Access database that is linked to that Dataverse table out in the Power Platform. And I can see there's no data there either, right? So, and at the same time, while we're here, I'll show you that I have another table that's a SQL table somewhere else, empty. I have an Access table that's stored on my local computer, also empty. And we're going to see that those are going to get populated. Now, this is going to take a little while to run. So while it's running, we're going to look at another way to do this without the automation, because this automation costs money. And there are a lot of people that just don't want to pay the licensing for it. So we can just go ahead and do a different way and still cut down tremendously on the amount of work that poor person has to do. So in this example, we're going to actually send files to the person, except when the person receives the email, they have to manually save the CSV files to a different folder, right? We're using a different folder, but it's still up in SharePoint. And then once they get that, they will drop the files in the folder. Then they're going to open up a tool that I wrote in Excel that will generate all the ETL stuff, right? It'll fix them all. And then it's going to open the resultant table up in an Excel file so we can see it. So we'll see the data, and then we're going to let it push that data into a real database. So we're using Excel as a tool, an intermediary step, and we're going to push the data into 2 other data sources, one being on my computer and another one in a completely different place on a server out in the cloud in the SQL database, okay? And then instead of archiving it and moving those files, what we're going to do is we're simply going to change the extension from CSV to .done. That's all we're going to do, okay? So to do that, let me just show you. There's nothing in the manual drop here. So I'm going to drop a bunch of files in instead of sending the email. I'm just going to put these 48 files in there. I'm going to copy them. So I'm copying them up to a folder that's up in SharePoint in a document library. And then when they get there, I can open up this other tool. And in here, I'm going to use this tool, which has a bunch of Visual Basic programming behind it. Okay, so I've got should have my files here, right? Bunch of CSV files for now. And I'm going to tell this tool, I want you to go and do all the transformation on 48 files, show me the data here, and then I want to stuff it into my Access and my SQL tables just because I can. So I'll click this button. It's going to process those files, and it's going to show me the results of all of the files right here in this table. And there it is. And now it's asking, do you want to append this to your Access database? Yes, I do. And that's done. Do you want to append this to your SQL table? Yes, I do. Right? Remember, that's out on the internet. And if I come back here and look, we're going to wait and see this. All of these CSV files should next get renamed. Again, it's all being done by pushing that button and running a Visual Basic procedure behind this Excel file. And even though I see the data here, I don't care that it's here because now I've already moved it to a real database or a couple of these things. So I'll say, yep, that's all good. And if I come back here, this should change any second now. And in the meantime, I'm going to just close this file. I don't even need to save it because it's just a tool. Let that close. And if I go back here, these have all been renamed to done. So that process is done. So think about it. We've now done this manually, but way better than the other way, right? And if I go back into my Access file, I could see, yeah, I've got 306 records here. If I go to my SQL table, I've got 306 records there. So the data actually moved from Excel out into a couple of other different data points. Now, while we're here, let's check on Dataverse. If I refresh this, and let's see if we got anything here. Should have data there, and we do. We have 152 records because remember, this is in 2023, this is 2024 data, and it's only the first 2 quarters. So we have data now in 3 places, 2 of them out on different places on the web, and then 1 in a local Access database. And this Access file is looking at all 3 of them. It's connected to all 3 of them, okay? So let's go back and also check on the file changes. Let's see what happened here. Right, because that automation was running in the background. So we should have seen something show up in new, and we do, we see new. And then eventually these are all being moved into processed, and they are, and they're just moving along as we go. We have no control over the speed of this. It just happens in the background and just keeps happening. So we know that worked. So again, you ask, all right, big whoop. So now we got this stuff in database. Now what? Now we're going to show you where you can go and you can actually use this data. You can see the data and you can consume it in all of these different places. And we're going to look at it in each of these different tools and interact with it in these different tools in places that you probably, you might be surprised to see. All right, so one of these places is going to be in a file, in an Excel file. I'm going to open that up. When that's opening, let me explain. So we're going to use an Excel file to report on all of this data, right? So we're going to open up an Excel file that's simply going to, it's going to connect to all 3 of those data sources. And then by doing so, it's going to allow us to build visuals based on any of them, right? Any of those data sources that we want. And I have something bugging me here. Let me just check. That is done. So, yep, I gotcha. So this is that file. And what it's doing is now it's using the Power Query. It's going out and reading all 3 of those data sources. And you're going to see that I've got some visuals, right? They're not beautiful. I didn't try to make it beautiful. I just tried to make it functional. And they're interactive. They're live. So imagine instead of people saying, hey, can you give me this report? Can you get me that report? You can use tools that you already own, like Excel. connect to multiple data sources using this ETL tool, and then present that data and build your pivot tables, build charts, build graphs, and nobody has to know how to do it. And when they open it up and refresh it, they know that they're looking at the latest and greatest data, right? You can see, well, maybe you can't, but it's actually reading the data live. So in this example, I've got 4 sheets here, 4 different views of the data, and the red tabs are all tied to an access file. The blue tabs are all tied to a SQL table, or the SQL table we used, and then this last one is tied to Dataverse. And what I've got now are things that are fully interactive. They're independent of one another. So people can come in and they can help themselves. They can see the data, but they can't touch the data, right? This is just an Excel file with visuals in it, right? It would be like a dashboard. I built a dashboard that's got lots of different visuals in it, and they're connected to multiple things. So at this point, people can go in and help themselves. They can ask their own questions, and I don't have to worry about them breaking something, right? I don't have to worry about them breaking my data. They can't touch the data. So another thing we could do is we can use the Power BI service, right? So the Power BI service is running in the cloud, and the data here looks like this. If I go up, I've got these reports up here, and I'll just refresh the reports, make sure we got data. And I've got 3 pages in this report, and this is published for anybody for me to invite. I can invite people in my company, outside the company, as long as they have a license and I've given them permission to get here. They can connect and they can interact with this data. It's live, right? They can filter, they can do their own, self-serve stuff. So this is up in the Power BI portal. At the same time, think about it, we're in a live slideshow, and the data that I see here in my live slideshow is actually coming from that portal. These are not screenshots. These are interactive, right? I can expand this stuff. I can actually go in and look at different questions, right? Different filters in real time. I don't have to worry about going to getting screenshots, go take a screenshot of that, paste it in here before I commit the slides for the month-end presentation. So how much time does that save? It saves a bunch. Another place that we might see this stuff would be in Teams, right? So in this case, I'm going to show you that I've got in Teams, I'm joined to that same group, and I'm going to look at my data demo. And you're going to see that I've got the same visuals here. They're available right through Teams, again, providing you have a license for them. And I've got all 3 pages here. I can interact with this stuff, change the visuals, and you can see there's very different visuals than what you get in Excel. And again, it's done. I didn't have to do anything. I just refresh the screen here. And then the last place we can look at this is on a web page. I can take and publish those visuals even on a SharePoint site or in a web page, right? So here I've got one of the pages. These are fully interactive again. I can come in here and use them on the web page without having to go to the Power BI portal, right? So we have a bunch of different ways that we can visualize the data. And once it's set up and linked, it's just done, right? It's all good. So one last thing I want to show is Power Apps. So in this case, I have Power Apps running in an emulator, and this is running to, don't do it. It's not going to do it. You're just killing me here. You never know what's going to happen when you go live, right? Let's see if it did it here. So in Teams, see if we can update that. Well, I have data here, so that's good. Right? Not sure why it's not working in the other one, but what I want to do is I want to show you that I can really interact with this. Right? So I'm going to put these side by side. So I'm in Teams and I'm using Power Apps. And I'm going to go to this record here, Vulith, where I have 20 units. And I'm going to edit that. I'm going to change it from 20 to 22 and save it. Right? So I'm in Teams using a Power App. If I come over here and I filter this and say, just show me the Vulith so it's easier to see. And then I refresh this data. There's my 22. And if I change this to 122, and I come back here and I refresh it here, there's my 122, right? So it works together, right? I'm looking at something through Teams, I'm looking through the same data in Access, and the data is out in the Dataverse, right? So we've interacted with it a number of ways here. Why this is not refreshing, I do not know. But I'm going to gloss over that just in the with time here. That's all we got. Not enough time. Never enough time. All right. So another thing that I want to show is some power that we have to use these other tools like Word, and I can do something with Word that probably nobody's really ever seen before. I'm going to open up a Word template. Hopefully it opens on this screen, and I'm being prompted for something. So you can see I have an empty template here, an empty document, and it's asking me, what product code do you want to see? I'm going to type in PWD and hit OK. And Visual Basic that's stored in this template is taking that input I just took, and it sent it out to the internet, to the SQL Server. And it used it in a query or a view in SQL Server, and it returned only the records that match that criteria. And then it built this table for us, and it formatted it, right? So somebody doesn't have to know how to do this. It took that data that's on the internet, and it just built a document using it. This gray field down here is actually a field code. It's a formula in a Word table. So if I change the number here, if I change this to a 7, and I come down here and hit F9, it will recalculate the number for me. And I could throw it away because I could just regenerate it, no problem, right? And other templates, like here's a really good example of a very, very large template, right? This template is 24 pages. This is not capable of being filled in with a mail merge, right? This is a huge, huge document. And it gets, I mean, some of these end up being 80 or 90 pages when they're all filled out with data, right? And this is being launched from an Access file. And we're going to do something like that here with this example. This is a database I wrote for a construction company. They do sheetrocking and plastering. And this allowed them to calculate all the requirements, you know, the sheets, the, you know, blah, 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 that they needed. And then they could come in here to their financials and they could say, you know what, I'm feeling greedy. I want to make 33% profit. And it'll calculate that, yeah, you need to, you know, charge $9,900 and change, right? You'd say, well, you know, this is a good guy. Maybe I'll just make it 9,000, and then we'll save that. And now I can say, I want to create a plaster quote. So it's going to open up another Word template, and it's going to populate that with data from the Access database. And there's the 9,000 that we entered and all the other features that were programmed in. And then, I mean, this is live. This actually worked for a guy. He ended up letting go of 3 of his full-time people because he didn't need them. He could do it faster and more accurately on his own. Had a little printer on his truck seat, and you know, he just left this right at the job site as he did it. It was kind of pretty cool. So we just did a whole bunch of different examples there on how you can interact with your data. And now I want to show a couple of our examples here. What do I got? I still got a little time here. So some database apps. Again, for those of you who kind of poo-poo Access, if you know what you're doing with it, it can do a lot of stuff, and it's great to work with. It's easy to give people what they want, right? The look and the feel of things, and you can make it very specific to a particular problem. You don't have to build out this huge enterprise system for somebody. You can, you know, do very targeted solutions. So one of them was back in 1999, I was brought into the Boston Marathon. They had a paper-based system that they were just being crushed under, trying to manage all of the volunteers. They had about 8,000 volunteers back then for the Boston Marathon. And people sent in papers. This is the job I want, you know, my first, second, third choice. And somebody had to go through and kind of take care of all of that. And the jobs were like 3-hour increments. And there were just hundreds and hundreds of jobs that had to be filled. So I wrote a database and created it and worked on it for almost 20 years, developing more and more features to it. Ended up, you know, they could manage 12,500 volunteers for the full marathon, but then they could also use it for 3 new races that they added to it, the half marathon, the 5, and the 10K. And they were able to do that because of this database without hiring anybody else to manage them. Whereas things like the New York, Chicago, London, San Francisco marathons, they have somewhere between 12 and 20 people to do what this one person was doing. And she didn't even live in Boston. She was in Colorado doing this remotely. And then a quirky, very, very specific app, something like this. Again, it's an Access database. You can make it look any way you want. They had to number buses. They had to put number signs in all the windows of all the buses that transport all of the runners from Boston out to the start line. And it was a terribly manual task that had to be done, and it could never be done the same way twice. So I gave them a little app that allowed them to manage that more easily. And they go and fill some things out and hit a button, and it prints all the signs for any particular bus. Another one was worldwide press, had hundreds of people from all over the world coming in, and they had to be credentialed because it's very, very secure there. You can't, get from that area to this area. Only certain people are allowed in certain places, especially after the bombing, right? So, there was a guy who didn't even work for the marathon office. He was just a volunteer, and he came in and he was able to do this by himself and manage all of these credentials, all of the sign-up sheets, and all the signatures and all that, and record keeping all within this database. Another one I did for Genzyme Corporation. It was for clinical studies they were using, and they had paper notebooks they would bring into their surgery rooms as they're doing their findings, and recording everything in notebooks. And when I built this for them, they were able to record their findings in a laptop live as the surgeon was doing his job. And when they were scrubbing out, they'd hit print, they'd go scrub out, and by the time they got back to their office, they had all their reports and everything sitting on the printer, ready, waiting for them. And they didn't have to worry about, oh, it's all on paper here. How are we going to back this up? So it was another really neat time saver for them. This is a great example of how big you can use Assist. All right, this is a very, very long time client of mine down in Florida, and it's integrated with QuickBooks. They used to do time card stuff in an Excel file. And in the Excel file, people were typing in what they did, but it didn't necessarily match with the codes that they had to use up in QuickBooks. So somebody at the end of every week had to enter the data manually up into QuickBooks and try to interpret what everybody was writing. So instead, we now integrate it with QuickBooks. So when everybody signs in, they get their own customized choices that they can pick from as they're entering their time. And it's guaranteed to match because it's coming from QuickBooks. So at the end of the week, nobody's entering stuff back up into QuickBooks. It's all processed with a job that runs Tuesday morning at 2 a.m. while everybody's in bed, right? Everything's been dumped into the database, and then it's pushed up into QuickBooks automatically overnight. So they can run their payroll on Tuesday mornings. The supervisors have their own version of the form where they can come back and give feedback if they have a problem with the way somebody coded something, because they're going to bill this back to their clients. Then they can enter their notes about any particular line item, and then when they deny the time card, it generates an automatic email with their input with the line items, and it goes back to the originator for them to make changes, and then they can resubmit their time card. This particular one is being used by almost 70 users, 6 days a week, up to 20 hours a day. If I have to go in and do work in this database or one of their line of business systems, I have to wait until, unless I make special circumstances come up, I have to wait until well after hours because somebody's working in here all the time. And this has been running very well for 7 years. A couple of other examples, this is an Excel report, right? It's a template file. It's got all of the smarts built into it. People open it up, they can refresh it all day long, and it gives them, owner company overview. You have managers who can come in here and see how their employees are doing against certain metrics that they wanted to know about. And if you have questions about an employee, you could drill down and look at any one of these employees by just filtering one of these slices here. And again, it's software you own, right? It's Excel. It's just reporting in Excel. This reporting is coming out of an out of a SQL database used by a front end that's been developed in Access. And then this is a kooky one, a one-off. One of my other long-term customers needed something to put in front of their clients, and their clients were looking for a schedule of when is my product transitioning from this facility down to this manufacturing facility in another state. And the salespeople that were responsible for doing that, they tried to build this. They did it once. It took them well over a day to put it together just for one client. And they said, yeah, it's not supportable, right? We have dozens of clients that are moving products. So what do we do? So they asked me, could you do this? So I built an Excel solution, and it worked out pretty well for them, right? So instead of over a day, this was really taking a couple of minutes to generate. They go in, they pick the customer, they hit refresh, and it goes and it filters all the data. And the data was coming from two separate access databases in two different plants, and then two separate Excel files. I wouldn't call them databases, and then an SAP text file that was exported every night. And we mashed all that together using Power Query and produced the data grid over here. And then I wrote this formula or this function, gave it a name of Gantt bars, and that's the formula that's in all these cells over here. So it reads the data off on the left, and it determines what the bars should look like or what the cell color should be. So I think I did that in record time. I've done this a whole bunch of times, but I think I got through everything I wanted to get through. And as a wrap up, custom applications, right? Custom data applications where we can help you clean your data. We can help you clean up the way you ingest data or you pull data in. We can merge data from disparate systems. Maybe it's only by using text files, or there might be third-party APIs or something like we have for QuickBooks there. If you have paper-based systems or people who do that, we can convert those and give you a very focused solution and templates that will improve your output quality and give you reporting tools that you probably never had before. And all the while, probably elevating employee skills because they're going to see what's possible. People don't even know what they can do with the software they've already got. So if I can help anybody like that, I would love to, talk more about your needs, or, if you know somebody, I'd love to, get a referral, and we'll go from there. And with that, I think I'm done.
Whew,
And you're back.
that was
Okay.
that was a marathon, all right. Who knew? Who knew? I'm going to allow folks to pop in here and speak. I mean, if you like to ask Rich a question, we can certainly give you the ability to speak. Allowing you to talk brings you on camera. So I mean, I'm okay to do that. As this is being recorded. So
They may be afraid to ask because I may answer them.
any any questions? And before folks jump in here, Rich, I know that you had mentioned around the licensing requirements. So do you have any idea off the top of your head what licensing for each of these products?
Yeah. So the Microsoft licensing is it's a horrible maze. It's really, really complicated. So and I am not expert at it, but basically, if you wanted to see those Power BI visuals, right, the visualization tools, you would need the lowest form of license you would need would be Power BI Pro, I believe, and that is $20 a month per user. All right, all the way up to, I believe, I read once and it horrified me. There's an enterprise license you can get, so you don't have to worry about per user, and that is something like $5,000 a month for an enterprise. I mean, it's just crazy money. The Power Automate has a whole separate set of licensing, and Power Apps is another set of licensing. Power Apps, I'm a little more familiar with, in that if you had one customized app that you wanted to run, it could cost you just $5 a month, and you could run it as many times as you want. That's great. If you had two apps and you had that $5 a month license, whichever app you run first in any month, that's what you get to use that month. And after that, then you could use the other one the next month. Or I think it could be 10, could be $20 a month, would get you what they call a per user license. And the per user license allows you to use any number of apps as you go. I see a couple of questions there.
Yep, yep.
So I'm new at this. Let's see. Have you used Power Pack from Microsoft? I don't think I've heard of that Power Pack, Rich. I'm not sure what that is.
Is that the bundle of the, of the Power Tools, the Power Automate?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I'm not familiar with that term. It's a new if it's new, I don't know what that's about. Maybe Warren can step in and tell us.
I was wondering if he was meaning Action Pack, which is the developer tools that you can buy as part of your like standard partner pro.
Yeah, and I do use Action Pack. I've been a subscriber of Action Pack for a long, long time now. But that doesn't get me the other stuff. It's all very separate, very, very separate.
Now we do get it if you go to E3 or E5, you start getting a lot of some of this stuff, especially consuming the reports is included.
Well, I have the E3 license and the Action Pack, and I still had to get the Power BI Pro license for that. Let me see. Copilot PC with specialized hardware for it. Do you have any thoughts? I have to tell you, I have not dived into the AI space at all here, and I'm going to defer that to maybe our new panel that William and somebody is working on that will be able to speak better about that. I don't know.
Yeah, so I'm putting together an event with some of our experts on the various Gen AI platforms. Deborah Frere is sort of working with me on that effort. We also have a survey around the use of Gen AI posted in the technology industry group. So if any of you have not completed the survey, I encourage you, to do so.
All right. Well, I think if we're all set, I hope that I get across what's possible, right? Because what I've found is over the years, people don't know what they can do, and they don't, and because they don't know what's possible, they don't ask for help in achieving it. And that's a problem, right? They think I'm using the software the way someone told me, whether it's, I take out a piece of paper and I follow this instruction every single time I do it, which I've seen, or they said, yeah, this is the only way. They've convinced themselves it's the only way, and they don't invest in any time to learn more about it because they're too busy doing it the wrong way. So they just burnt out. So half the problem is getting people to understand what is possible. And a guy told me a long, long, long time ago, before I was even doing this, he said, anything is possible with software. And if you don't believe that, I guess look at AI, right? I mean, who could have thought? So if you want it, if you sit down and go to do a task on your computer and you absolutely dread it and you say, oh, it's got to be a better way, there is. There is. Just finding the right person.
So, Rich, circling back to my licensing questions, right? So you had workflows in your demonstration that leveraged different parts of the Microsoft stack. So, for example, if you're leveraging Power BI for some of your automations, do both the administrator, the one who is sort of configuring it, and the users as well, do all of them have to have Power BI or Power BI Pro license level?
The developer, I'm using a free developer license, right? So I don't have to get all of that stuff. So I can develop that stuff, but I could stand it up in an environment and it'll work. I could transfer that to somebody else's tenant and it'll work. But for them to run it, they have to have the license.
Okay, good.
And with the Power Apps, I think with the Power Apps, when you get to the per user license, and again, I'm not expert at this, I haven't looked at the documentation here for a while, but I believe that when you get the premium license for Power Apps, the per user stuff, it allows you to run not only the Power Automate stuff, but it also allows you access to some connectors. There is a loophole in there, and that is if you develop a Power App against, say, the Dataverse data set, right? So you want to store your data in the Dataverse, and you do that through Teams, you can do that for free.
Yeah.
But there are certain limits, right? There's limits to how much data you can put in there, and but it is free and it's fully featured. So you can you can get away with this cheaper in some ways, but no matter what, they're going to get you. They're going to get you. Like,
Yeah.
there's no such thing as a free lunch anymore.
So one of the things that I'm thinking about for for a follow-on event, not necessarily with you, Rich, if this is not your area, is that we've been, because of the work that we're doing in the defense space, we've been leveraging more the Microsoft security stack. So exactly like you did today, sort of walking through sort of the integrations and so on and so forth. I think I'll be looking for a SME that has a similar expertise on the security side to really showcase for us how to leverage the Microsoft security stack, right? The Intune, the Defender, the Sentinel, and how all that can kind of work together. Microsoft has made available a co-pilot for security product line now, right? Sort of automating the security analyst type of role, leveraging their stack. So for any of you that are watching the webinar or that are in attendance, if you have expertise within the Microsoft security stack, and you're willing to share that expertise with us, I for one would certainly be very interested.
Would you also include the Azure platform in that as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think the Azure, or the Entra, whatever they're calling it today. Entra ID stuff. So it's too much for one person, right? I mean, it's vast, and
barely keep up.
It's always changing. The names aren't just changing. It's always it's just getting bigger and bigger and more important. So yeah, I'd love to see something like that.
Marion.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Sorry, I didn't put my camera on. Look a mess right now. Just bear with me.
All right.
But I do IT security and data security. I have my CISSP, and I started in the tier 1 tech space. I've done a lot, database. So I'm SQL certified too, there, Rich. Yes, I can write Access and SQL and make it sing too. But you're great. I have nothing for you for that. You did a great job there. You do a great job there. I wanted to speak in terms of the embedded Microsoft security offerings that they're doing now. And I always suggest to anyone, anytime you delve into security, is that you have layers of defense. So even if someone does have the Sentinel, the Defender, always make sure that you have another layer that is not Microsoft or not, a different product to kind of help with whatever, whether it's identity access management, your VPN, whatever you're doing. I just wanted to make that suggestion that you always, and people don't know, so if you don't know, you just don't know. But always try to find something else that could complement your security in that particular space or wherever you, whatever you're trying to secure, either whether it's your data or in transit, process, or storage. There you are.
I agree. The defense and right? That's what we should always strive to practice.
Yes. And I am enjoying it. I am enjoying. Sorry, I'm a little late to the conversation, but I did get to see some of the illustrations that Rich had showed, and I quite fancy. Good job, quite fancy. Yep. Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I had some fun playing with that stuff to do. So
I'm one of those that are, a very rudimentary, Excel users, right? So what that means is a lot of copy pasting.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes, 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 yes.
yep,
It's
yep.
Yeah,
that's probably their best tool. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it could do a lot. It's again, very, very powerful tool, for a variety of reasons, right? And when you get into the Power Pivot portions of that, the
Hmm.
whole DAX language behind that, it's just it's huge. It's a huge program, and it's so powerful. To be able to take millions of records of information and process it through an Excel file is unheard of, right? You can't see it, but it can be in the file and you can visualize it and do analysis on it using DAX and using the Power Pivot features as well. So yeah, it's a great tool and great product line. I mean, it really is. I mean, it's got its flaws, right? Like everything else, but uh, for the monthly fee that it costs to subscribe to the O365, it's the best value on the planet, really.
Yes, it actually is. The funny thing, I got my bachelor's in computer science from Rutgers, so it's like the research college of America. I mean, everyone is like they wrote a book on it. It's basket weaving, whatever they teach, they know it down to a science. Well, my team decided to do a access um, database. Well, we were creating a shopping cart. It was, this was before all this fancy stuff is already here now. So, a little while ago. And our professor said, good luck. Because what happened was years ago, before they allowed all of the development that they allow now, it was so restrictive. And then you only could do, I think it was 68,000 records, I think, Rich, or 48,000. Like there were so many caps that Microsoft had that you could only go so far, and then you couldn't do it without knowing their secret sauce and all of that. So, but we ended up getting an A because we kept beating it and beating it and beating it and beating, and it didn't come out perfect. Our shopping cart did not. But he just wanted the goal is that you research and put the thought process in. But that was, yeah, yes. So thank God they finally open up development for everybody, for other people to be able to do other things with their product.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a very powerful tool. So we are at time. I thanks all who made the time to attend today. I see we have a last minute comment here from.
Yeah, Warren's got some info.
All right, so Power BI Pro is included in the E5 license.
Yep.
Yeah. Great. Thanks. Thanks for
Thank
sharing.
you, Warren. Yep.
Rich,
Okay.
thanks.
Nice
It was
meeting you.
insightful. I'm blown away by
Mhm.
the magic that you can make here. I am going to, this event is recorded, so I'm going to have it posted up in the group for those who were not able to attend. Thanks again, and I do look forward to having you on a future event to showcase more of your magic.
Very good. Well, it was a fun exercise, and again, thanks for all you do for the team here, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely.
All right,
Thanks,
take
everybody.
care. Thanks, everybody. All right, bye-bye.